On this episode of Star Trek Universe, I said jump down on Breen Street. 21 Breen Street. We're discussing Discovery 509, Lagrange Point, right after a few words from these undercover Starfleet officers in Breen uniforms.
Welcome to Star Trek Universe, the podcast where you can listen in on two lifelong friends, sit and chat about Star Trek. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Roberson.
Dave, how's it going, buddy?
I don't know, it's going. Just going.
Good. Well, good, and I'm glad it's moving. I'm feeling revved up because I watched Furiosa today. Okay. And it's just, it was like, I had heard of this effect, but I definitely had to, like, get my driving under control when I left the theater, because I just, like, you get those car chase movies. I think the Fast and the Furious have a similar effect, like people getting more crashes on the way home.
Yeah.
So I had to be like, okay, drive like normal. Don't drive like Furiosa.
I became aware of that when I was 6 years old. For my 6th birthday, my mom and dad took me to go see the Michael Keaton Batman. And we got in my mom's tiny red Pontiac Le Mans. And she was like, let me rev up my Batmobile. And she drove like a bat out of hell all the way home.
I believe that fully. Oh, man. So we've seen a new episode of Discovery that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
What'd you think of this here new episode?
It had some really pretty stuff in it. Mm-hmm. But it was an infuriating piece of shit episode, especially for Jonathan, for an episode that Jonathan Frakes directed. I was just like, Jesus Christ.
Well, directed beautifully. I didn't think it was a piece of shit episode. I did think it was like, okay, I like these kinds of episodes. I like just sort of like war, and you got to solve a problem, and you got to get into the people, you got to infiltrate or whatever. I really like these kinds of situations on Star Trek.
You also like a heist movie.
Oh, I love a heist movie. But I love reading books where, like, they have to, like, figure out how to get beyond the Borg sensors to do the thing or whatever. I love that kind of stuff. But for it, I think the thing that bothered me is it made the Breen seem really underpowered. If they, like, oh no, they lost the race. The whole season we've been like, we got to beat the Breen to this. And then it's like, you lost the race, and it's gone. The first moments of the episode, the container is gone. And then it's like, the Breen just, they just board a Breen ship to, like, with very little problem. You know what I mean? Like, very little problem, no stakes, no one dies to make it happen, no, like, major... Like, at one point, I thought Book might die, because she jumps through the portal, and then, that was the one part of the episode that I did think was kind of bullshit, because, like, it was clear that they couldn't figure out a way to write around the fact that they beamed Book out, but not Michael, because she jumps through the portal right as the thing is breaking the seal, and so he gets beamed out, but they never showed it, so they couldn't decide when. I think they couldn't decide when Book got beamed out exactly, so they just had him show up on Discovery without showing him, like, flying through the airlock or whatever.
You can see him beam out. I had to rewind it. You can see him. It's really, like, just blink and you'll miss it, but you're also like, why couldn't they beam the thing? But the whole... Oh, God.
What is trash to you about this? Yeah, go ahead.
At the beginning of the episode, they're like, okay, we can jump, we just don't know where, and then they jump, and they're about to get sucked into a black hole. Mm-hmm. All right, so they finagle their way out. Would it not make sense for, while they're trying to get out of the black hole, for the Breen to show up and get the thing and run off with it? Because they were still cloaked. The Breen wouldn't even know they were there.
Well, sure.
Because the way they did it, they got out of the black hole, and then they stand around with their thumbs in their asses.
Yeah.
Talking about like the progenitor tech and how they probably created the black holes because they're primordial black holes. And oh, look at all this. And then the Breen fucking show up and grab it and they're like, oh no.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point. It's a really good point that like, it's the same problem we had with last week's episode where it's like, this is minutes count. We don't have time to listen to the speech from the lady from the archive. We gotta skip past this dialogue tree because we're in a hurry, and then you jump to like a few minutes later and Jet Reno is telling a story about her life. When all moments are clutch, they take time to let like Stamets and Jet and all these like people just like take their time. And I'm like, and in that moment it kind of I feel like it shows this like, okay, so the villains of Star Trek, like the other like cultures
the writers.
The other cultures of Star Trek that often come up against the Federation, who are often portrayed as villains of the story, they often talk about the Federation as like, yeah, they're soft, their empathy is their problem, you know, they're like, they're too weak, they're not willing to do what they have to do to survive in the, you know, whatever, like we're warriors, they're the soft ones. But this one highlights, they're also the scientists, you know, and like that moment highlights this big weakness of them as the scientists, where they have this moment where they should have just grabbed the goal, and instead they stand around going, I wonder, like, this is interesting, and then they just get beaten to the punch by the Breen. That's terrible. You're very good point.
It is a thing that happens over and over in this episode. Terrible timing with Michael and Book while they are dressed up like Breen on the Breen ship. Don't know why the Breen don't have like some sort of sensors that would be like, hey, holy shit, there are people who aren't Breen on the ship.
Yeah, there's just human life signs detected or whatever.
Sweeping, So, but yeah, let's, and Michael even like hangs the lantern on it and says, this is a terrible time to talk about this, but let's go off into this little alcove over here and talk about our feelings. It's like, you're in the middle of a life and death, like, seconds ticking away on the clock mission, Michael.
Yeah.
What you doing? Why are you suddenly the worst captain ever? This is a terrible idea. Tilly taking time out to tell Raynor he should stop pacing and sit down in the captain's chair. Like, oh my Christ, why is this happening? Like, Adira on the Breen ship, not doing her hacking, just staring at Reese fighting Breen soldiers. Like, Tilly just staring awkwardly at Raynor, talking about getting Michael back from the portal. Like, what is, like, they just keep taking these, like, big chunks of time away from this very time-sensitive mission.
So that's kind of what I was getting at, like, and I agree with you completely, but also it is just so easy for them to come up with this plan to infiltrate a Breen ship. It takes them like no time at all, and it just seems like this would be the kind of thing that would be like in other situations on Star Trek, like when they had to go to I'm thinking of like that Next Generation episode when they have to go to Romulus as Romulans, right? Mm-hmm. That mission is presented to them as a mission. Like they come to them and go like, all right, we got this long plan and here's the plan. And then they go and do it. Like they have their like, so they have the tech to disguise them and like all this stuff is presented to them from Starfleet. So you're like, all right, that seems like a good plan. Let's go do it.
Right.
This is like, let's just do a thing that seems like it should be way harder than it is. And then on top of that, they have moments like you're talking about that make them seem totally inept and not focused.
Yep.
And so it makes this entire like ordeal seem too easy and like they're not even trying, they're just stumbling through, and they don't really succeed at the end. They do succeed in Michael getting into the thing, which is all I knew they were going to do. As soon as I saw they had the portal open, I was like, okay, so Michael's going to end up going through it, because she has the information, she's going to end up going through it. But it was very predictable. I was not a fan of the action of this episode.
Yeah. Like, I thought the Breen were supposed to be warriors, and, like, Raynor is just, like, not Raynor, Reese is just, like, taking them down.
Yeah. I don't know what they must be planning a Star Trek Reese series, because like last episode he was like, I'm the best captain, I'm so decisive and awesome. It was like, I was like, yeah, I'm on Reese's team. And this episode is like, also I'm a total like hand-to-hand combat badass. I'm like, what are they planning for Reese?
Yeah, okay, let's do something.
Yeah, like I'm
Sure.
on board. He's cool.
He's been on the show all these years, and I'm just now finding out that he's like my favorite character on the show.
Exactly. Like, I wish you'd shown me this 3 seasons ago, or sprinkled it in. Instead, you give me 2 back-to-back episodes where he like impresses the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And he's no frills, always business. Like Rainer or someone comes on the bridge and he just like hops up. This episode, earlier in the episode, I think he's in the captain's chair and someone walks in and takes over and he just jumps up and moves on. Like the camera barely focuses on him. It's just I don't know. They've really treated his character strangely. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, Book this. I know that like we've had him do engineering stuff in the past, but I felt like Book this episode was like diving around doing engineering. Like he was like action engineer, which I wasn't opposed to. It's just like never a thing we've seen him do. Like so last week they were like, hey, come help in engineering, and this week they were like, yeah, he's just still in engineering, and like he's like running around literally sliding into place to do little coupling changes and stuff. And I'm like, I mean, it was cool to watch, but like it doesn't feel.
We've seen him do stuff like that on his ship.
Sure, absolutely, on his ship. But his ship is like he's the only one operating it, so it makes more sense that he's got to run around. That's the whole thing. And I guess his style of engineering would still be like that in a pinch. But there's the thing, Book's the only one in a hurry.
Yep, that's absolutely true.
Reese is kicking ass, Book is sliding around doing cool engineering stuff, and everyone else is like having conversations about their feelings while doing what should be the hardest thing they've ever done.
We got Culber and Stamets over here deciding to walk Adira to their first day of kindergarten.
Yeah. It's like really slow walking them down to kindergarten. Also, why are they walking at all? Like it just needed to be a transport out. Like so often on the show, I'm like, why is anyone standing before they go somewhere?
Well, they make a point of having everybody like just like tapping out. Oh, they're gone. Oh, Jesus, God. And then all of a sudden, like, they've got to take a long, slow walk down a corridor and reassure Adira, because they've been on the ship for, 3-4 years now, and they're still not feeling good about it. And don't know if, like, they just turned around and said, I could do it, and I could do it quick. Cool, you're going on the away mission. I'm not sure about this.
Yeah, well, it does go with the entire plot they've had for their character this entire season, which is, like, they're unsure of themselves, and they need to, like, figure that out. But it is it's doesn't feel like, I don't know, it doesn't feel good. It feels like, why are we it's the last 2 episodes of this show, and we're dealing with a crewman that is still just trying to figure out if they should be a crewman. I don't know, like if they're in for this life or something like that. I don't know. It just feels like this should be the crew operating at full capacity and going for it,
And they literally had a scene this episode with Adira, Stamets, and Tilly all together, all of them stammering and stuttering and acting like they were unsure of themselves in the same conversation.
Oh man, I did not dislike this episode near as much as you did. I found it fine, but the biggest problem I had was it just like, that seemed way too easy. Like the Breen have been like built up to be this huge threat, and then they're like, well, we could just go over there and pick it up. Like they were going to run to the store. I was like, what? You can do that? If that's and I know it had a lot of like intricacies, and I know they had to like ram the shield with the ship and all this. Like there were a lot of stuff they had to do, but it just felt like it should have been, hey, we can go over there and put a transporter lock, but it's a suicide mission. And then the ramming of the shield may be like a last minute addition to the plan that gets them out of there. And it was, but it was like, it just felt like thing after thing that was like, felt too easy. I never felt like any of the crewmen were at threat, and I should have felt like they were all at threat because they're doing such a hard thing.
They've already introduced the fact that this tech is could bring people back from the dead. No, there are no stakes at all anymore for this season.
It's fair, fear or point. Well, I hate that is the overall feeling we have about this episode. Like I said, I enjoyed the experience of watching this episode, but I had my issue. But it sounds like you had a lot more.
Well, okay, to be fair, one, I enjoyed watching the episode. I always enjoy watching the episode, even when it's a shit episode. Two, you seem to have agreed with everything I've said, so apparently you do have all the issues I did. You just didn't notice them, maybe.
Well, yeah, I didn't know. I mean, like, I didn't notice the specific scenes you noticed, so I just didn't, like, I guess my suspension of disbelief was greater than yours throughout this episode, because I was just, like, going with it, so I didn't have that issue. And I think that's the power. Like, you can always nitpick these kinds of moments, like, why did they have a character moment when they should have been in a hurry? Like, that's something that almost all shows do. It's just that when you set up such a big moment for the crew to infiltrate a Breen ship, it just feels like everything should be on guard, everything should be heightened, and it was not. It was very much like they were just, like, going about their business, and that like, they're on the. I never felt. They walked onto the bridge of the Breen ship, and I never felt like they were in threat at all. You know what I mean? Like, it never felt like Adira and Reese were, like, in danger.
Nah.
The Breen should be able to at least tell other Breen apart and be able to tell who is bridge crew and not. It just seems like a total security failure if you don't. I don't know.
Yeah. It didn't make any sense to me. And also, like, I love there was, like, the one Breen who was just like, yeah, let's get you in an oil bath, person I've never met before.
Yeah, that was funny and weird. I enjoyed that part.
I mean, it was funny, but
yeah,
it doesn't hold up under any kind of, like, logic scrutiny.
Well, I don't know. We don't know what those. We don't know anything about their culture. So, like, we know now that they have, like, some sort of weird oil bath parties that may or may not be sexual, but they definitely sound sexual.
They're definitely sexual.
Well, they may or may not be in the universe, but that's definitely the implication that, like, Book and Burnham were playing with. Yeah,
their culture does not like walls. We knew that from their bridge, but now we know that from that conversation. There are no boundaries in the Breen world.
Yes, indeed. No barriers, no boundaries.
Socially, rank-wise. Yeah.
What'd you think of the Iron Man face shot that they used throughout the episode?
I mean, that's been a pretty standard thing. I didn't even really think about it too much. Is whenever they're in their environmental suits doing anything outside, they have the same shots, and they've had that since the beginning.
Well, the one thing they did this episode that I've never seen them do, they did a shot of all three of them at one time from inside their suits saying something together. It felt very. Let me first say, I didn't hate it. I thought it worked, but. It was super Power Rangers. Like, they all, like, let's do it or whatever. It, like, cut to a shot of all three of them. And I was like, I don't think in Star Trek, I may be not thinking of it, but I can't remember a Star Trek moment where they had three different cameras on, like, having a line down the middle of the scene like that. Can you think of other examples of that?
I feel like Lower Decks has done it. I don't know. Maybe they've done it on Discovery before. What it reminded me of was the first Hulk movie. Because, whoever the hell directed that movie, I can't remember now, did a lot of that kind of stuff because it looked like comic book panels.
Right, yeah.
And I thought that was a neat thing that they did in Hulk back in whatever it was, 2003.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. You're absolutely right. This felt very Power Rangers. I thought of Power Rangers as well.
Well, and they're all in suits. Like, it just...
Yeah.
that moment in particular felt very, very Power Rangers, and just, I don't know, weird. It was weird.
And now that you mention it, these 32nd century Breen suits just look like Mighty Morphin Jello Rangers.
Yeah. I mean, the suits, I don't really have a big problem with the suits, but they're fine.
Yeah, they're fine. It's just, they look like Power Rangers, that's all.
Yeah. They got the vibe for sure.
There was one shot they did of like Reese or Adira talking about how they're on the bridge now, but they showed the view of them looking like what they're seeing through that little green slit.
Mm-hmm.
And it looked awful. It looked like,
another shot you're
how
talking about.
can you even tell where the hell you are?
Yeah, there's a lot of that in that scene showing through the brains, which I think the idea was to make it feel claustrophobic and like they were in danger, but it did not work for me.
It just made it feel cheap.
Yeah. Well, it's a bummer. It's a bummer that we both like just really didn't dig this one too much. Like it just, I want to like this show so much, and it's like I don't know why I've lost all suspension of disbelief, like or we have or whatever. But like everything feels so underwritten. It feels so slapped together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cute that you still kind of want to blame us.
Well, yeah. No, I think you lose suspension of disbelief because a show has betrayed your suspension of disbelief too many times.
Right. So I didn't lose my suspension of disbelief. I know what happened to it. The writers robbed me of it. They mugged me in a back alley.
Do we have any feedback?
Oh yeah, we got feedback.
Let's get it. Let's get to it.
I think this was from last week. Andre Sparks says, Inception meets Star Trek. Hi, guys. Just as I thought, these last few episodes are getting intense. I enjoyed seeing Michael have to deal with her demons. She seems calm and collected now compared to season 1, but it was nice to see that she still has stuff to deal with. The Maul Breen scenes were great. Once that guy was about to fire on the library, it looked like she was about to turn to the Federation, but then she took over instead. I wonder if she will somehow see that she needs to work with the Federation, though. Can't wait to see how it turns out. Keep up the good work. I don't think she's going to turn to the Federation, Andre. I just don't.
I still think there's a possibility for that. Or I think there's a big possibility that inside this like portal that they're all in now. Did Maul make it in there?
Oh, yeah, Maul jumped in before Michael did.
Yeah, that's right. And
that was one of the cool things I liked about the episode was that she had a freaking portable pattern buffer that she used to preserve his body in the transporter buffer and then, like, stuck it on her wrist.
Yeah, 100%.
Before jumping into the
That was a lot of fun. And I definitely think, like, there's a possibility we will get Locke back. And it just depends on, like, if we get Locke back, does he want to be back? Like, will she be so taken with herself, like the idea that like she's conquered the Breen now, like, oh, we can go back and we can unite the houses and be Breen, and he's like, no, I chose a different life with you, like this is not the life I wanted at all. And she's gonna be like, no, we finally have safety, and he's gonna be like, no, it's not just about safety, it's about being where I want to be or whatever. I don't know, that's kind of where I could see that conversation happening if he comes back.
Yeah, when you first said it, I just saw Locke in my head going, there was no pain, no fear, no doubt, till you pulled me out of heaven. I think I was in heaven.
Yeah, golly, I want to know so much about the progenitor technology and the fact that and the progenitors, like I want that to be the focus of this.
Yeah.
And the fact that we're all the way here and they're just now entering into that zone. It feels like no matter what, this last episode is going to feel rushed.
Oh yeah. Not to mention the fact that they shot the damn thing, then they got canceled and had to go back and shoehorn some bullshit in to wrap the show. I'm just, and by the way, this was one of the shortest episodes of the series. I mean, like
really?
40 something episodes. It's like 42 episodes, 42 minutes or 45 minutes, something like that. It was just, my God, what are y'all doing? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Of course, they may have had to cut stuff that was setting up a next season that they're not going to have. So,
yeah. What else? Any other feedback?
Yeah. Tim Castillo writes, see, Matt and Dave, you guys are great. Thank you, man.
Thanks, Tim.
Says you find some positivity in every episode, and I enjoy that and need that because I tend to focus on moments like this one. I stopped watching Lagrange Point when the title sequence started. Discovery did not lose the artifact due to circumstances beyond their control, but they should have, because they are competent, intelligent, and trained to act. I would have bought them being caught in the gravitational pull and the Breen showing up and grabbing it. Why not do that? Don't make the crew look stupid by having them kill time for the Breen to show up and just yank it while they're doing nothing but stare at it. This was like a flip-flop of the villain monologue where Burnham is the villain and the Breen are the plucky hero that snatches the prize from them due to their conceit.
Yeah, except it's like they're like weird. Their need to talk about the past and the science and the discovery of it all, and it's just they just lose the thing they've been looking for this entire season. Yeah, it's pretty terrible.
I am baffled over and over by the ways the writers have the characters make stupid decisions like this. It's one of the most frustrating things about this series, and I just feel like this scene is the ultimate culmination of it. Do they not know time is the fire in which they burn? Great Generations reference.
Yes, it was.
This is why I don't want this timeline / time frame to be continued in another series. They haven't done enough to convince me that they can tell good stories about ideas and concepts in this era. It feels like a creative wall has been hit and they can't overcome it. Strange New Worlds does tell them well. If they could do that for this era, I'd be on board. It's these writers. It's not this era. It's these writers.
I agree. I agree. Obviously, they could be writing different stories here. Like, this is not essential to this era, but like it's just what we've gotten so far.
Tim continues, I continue to enjoy David Ajala, though. He was the best part of the Labyrinth episode. And the show was so pretty. Such a pretty show.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I'll watch the rest of the episode now. Because I love Star Trek, and I need it all, like an addict.
Yeah.
You have to understand, drugs can make you feel good. Then he sends us another email and says, hey, maybe I was wrong. I think this episode heard my petulant gripes and said, how about the rest of this episode then? I stand by what I said about the moment in the beginning of the episode. That was real dumb, and I feel like it's made worse by how generally on top of things everyone is for the rest of the episode. But after the opening credits, I saw that Jonathan Frakes directed this episode, and I thought to myself, well, that's promising. And you know what? The rest of the episode delivered. It was great. Maybe I'm just emotionally unstable these days. I should probably keep to myself, guys. No, Tim. I think Jonathan Frakes' name convinced you it was a good episode.
Yeah, I think maybe you like gave Frakes a pass. Like he got a little more suspicion of disbelief than you were giving it prior. Because I didn't know until it was over.
Tim saw, directed by Jonathan Frakes, and started going, don't lose suspicion, don't lose suspicion.
Don't lose suspension, don't lose suspension.
Yep.
Yeah, I like it.
All right, we got Stu here.
Stu! Sorry, and I didn't mean to not yell Andre's name. I feel bad. I didn't yell Andre when Andre wrote in. Just said I wasn't on top of it. But Andre, and now Stu!
Stu sends us an email titled "The One Where Reese Goes Beast Mode."
We just call it Reese mode around here.
Oh, hey, Just want to add to something Dave said last week and say I also would have been fine if this show had been them going to different places week to week and dealing with whatever the status is in this era. It was a big complaint of mine that they didn't do that after season 3, while the DMA storyline felt like a plot that could have happened in any era of Star Trek. Mm-hmm. Also, I can't believe they recast Tilly with Holly Hunter for the Starfleet Academy show. Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure they're not recasting her, but yeah, she's going to be a captain and chancellor of the Starfleet Academy.
Interesting.
And Holly Hunter, of course, Academy Award-winning actress. She's had nominations for Academy Awards several times.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to see her here.
Yeah, absolutely. I like Holly Hunter a lot.
Lagrange point. Tilly pep talking Adira in the previously on. Oh no. Another previously on part foreshadowing Michael/book reconciliation being a likely part of this episode set during a crisis. Oh no. Stu, man. Saru, you're not even through the previously on.
He's already really worried. They used, last week I complained about the previously on, that one moment that they included last week where it was like Stamets being like, we have to get back the progenitors technology, and it just felt like Power Rangers to me again. Yeah. It felt like a children's show, and it made me feel bad for liking it so much. They used it again this week. They used the same moment I complained about last week. They used it again, and I was like, come on, guys, that moment is so embarrassing. Like, I
noticed it too.
It's so embarrassing.
Saru and Katrina. Now, this is a relationship I give a fuck about. Not being sarcastic. I totally did. I read it in like, you remember the episode? Maybe you don't. There's an episode where Homer in The Simpsons becomes has a cannonball shoot into his stomach.
Yeah, vaguely.
And at some point, like, he comes out on stage, and there are these two teenagers in the crowd, and one of them goes, "Oh, Homer Simpson, he's cool." And the other guy goes, "Dude, are you being sarcastic?" And he's like, "I don't even know anymore." That's what I just thought of.
Yeah.
Stu says, also, I'm surprised the writer of this episode didn't have an aneurysm writing the discussion between them and the also alien president at Starfleet HQ. At least they put that random human ensign interrupting at the last second. Close one. I thought Tilly was going to throw up for a second when they hit that turbulence. By the way, why doesn't that ever happen? Yeah, they probably got like a pill or something.
Yeah, it might be some drugs regulating their system.
Yeah. I kept hearing all this talk of lock on in the conference room discussion as lock on. I think that's why they killed him off, to avoid the confusion.
Yeah, and they just started calling him the Scion.
Yeah.
They just needed
which some of that doesn't make any sense. Like, when they were, like, attacking, like, when they were caught by those guards, and they were like, oh, Scion and blah, blah, blah. Like, the Scion is dead. What are you talking about? Like, that shouldn't have worked.
The entirety of their ability to, like, trick the brain here made the brain seem like complete
real dumb
lack of a threat. Like, it just seemed like completely inept.
Yep. They're going to fly a shuttle into the gap in the shield. They aren't going to use this as an excuse to do another spacesuit jump set piece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they didn't have any more money. The money's gone, Stu. The show's over.
Yeah, I guess so. They didn't even have time to, like, make a model of that actor beaming out. They, like, literally, I looked it back to watch that scene, and it's just like they just barely show the beam of light as it. Also, there's no breen. There were lots of breen in there. There's no breen. They didn't want to have to model the like bodies flying out of the ship, so either for like, you know, sensor reasons or for just like tech reasons, it being harder to model bodies well, so they just disappear completely. I guess you could say they beamed out too beforehand, but like that's just headcanon.
Yep. Adira, this is your 3rd year on the show. Stop acting surprised that people think you're competent. I think you know that I agree with you, Stu. Kind of disappointed they aren't going further in their Breen disguises by smearing ecto-cooler jello all over their faces or something. Also, how come they just assumed that the Breen wouldn't have scans that would check if the people with covered faces were actually part of their species?
Yep.
Yes.
Makes no sense as it's just a huge security flaw all around, and like the fact that they don't exploit it all the time to the point that they've solved it by now is insane.
Referencing Maul screaming, "In my language!" Stu says, "Oh, check out this Maulinizer, demanding the majority assimilate to her ways." I like it.
Maulinizer's good.
Now they added a second human to the diplomatic scenes. For fuck's sake. I'm not going to miss I majored in xenoanthropology as an all-purpose plot device so much. Quote, "Now's not an ideal time." No, it isn't, Michael. No, it isn't. What exactly knocks these Breen guards out? It can't be blows to the head when they're wearing helmets. I agree.
Yeah. I mean, they do at one point have one of the characters grab some sort of like refrigeration tube or whatever from the side of their neck.
Yeah, that made sense.
Yeah, that made more sense.
I want like a Star Trek 6 moment where they're like, Reese is like fighting the guy, you know, and he's like, I don't know, he just passed out when I hit him in the funny bone. And then like Iman shows up and goes, "That was not his funny bone."
Yeah.
Not everyone keeps their genitals in the same place, Reese.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Kind of hard to be invested in this tension about Saru's safety when possible resurrection tech has been teased in the storyline. Right?
Yeah.
Maul's like, "Don't compare me to Rune. I wasn't attacking you or the archive. I'm just sacrificing all these soldiers who follow me to try to open this box." Yeah. She did keep pushing those guys into that portal.
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going.
It just gives them more fodder for next episode to either fight or to like fail the test, and so they get, you know, killed by whatever, a feral bunny or whatever, you know.
Bunnies, it must be bunnies.
Gosh, oh man, good job, Dave. You tied my Holy Grail reference back into your
What's More with Feeling.
What's More with Feeling reference. Good job.
Yeah, Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the win.
Yeah. He made a good point, and you made a great point about the idea that they have the so we know they reshot something to change something from the ending of the show, and I can't help but think they're gonna resurrect someone. They're gonna Spock this thing. Like someone's coming back from the dead, and now they have sent Saru on this dangerous mission to like intercept all of this stuff, and now I just think like maybe they originally planned on killing Saru off in this episode, and then now they're going to kill him off and bring him back in the final episode, which will be terrible.
Yeah,
at least with Locke, it like there was some time to build up to it.
Well, now they would have to kill him off and bring him back in the same episode.
Also, like this is the progenitor technology. I know that like the being able to defeat death is awesome and all, but like, it just seems like a limited use of the technology, and I hope that's not all we see them think about. Like, well, we got the progenitor technology. There's these two beings we wanted to bring back. Let's argue about that instead of like, I don't know, creation. Like, you have the power of creation in your hands. Like, you want to, and it's going to probably come down to like a couple of crewmen they want to bring back or whatever. I don't know. Seems silly.
I don't know. Also, I'm just hearing Dr. McCoy from Star Trek 2 in my head. Just complaining about like, now watch out. Genesis could do it in 6 minutes. Yeah, could be a terrible weapon. Could be, the best thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I can't imagine they're going to do it justice, whatever happens. Yeah. Now, Stu even talked about how he liked Saru and Tarina, but I swear to God, in this episode, I'm pretty sure they were just having a conversation that they had the last time they were on screen together, which is like, I can be logical and set aside my blah, 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 and for the...
It doesn't seem to be moving it forward very well.
I'm sure we've had this conversation before.
Yeah, I'm sure too. Okay, what else has Stu got?
All right. In the shot where Michael and Book turned their helmets off, I can see that their necks and non-breen skin was already exposed a bit. So, whoops. This is where the ecto-cooler would have been useful. I swear when Reese said, "I've got this," and jumped over the railing, I was like 70% expecting him to get instantly shot in the chest. That would have been awesome.
That would have made more sense, I feel like, from a production standpoint. Like the fact that you gave him a real hero moment last week to show off his character before you kill him off, Mm-hmm. But this is just like you made him such a badass after never giving him much to do at all.
Yep. Stu says, "Hey, Raynor took the captain's seat. I guess that means Michael is getting promoted to Admiral next week. Either that or she'll be given the Enterprise." Stu, I saw Raynor took the seat and I'm like, oh shit, he means business now.
Yeah. I actually that worked for me. I think it may have been one of my favorite moments of the episode was when he's like, "Our captain's in there. The progenitor tech is in there. Let's do this." Like, I don't know. I liked it. I liked Raynor sitting down and ready to go to battle.
Yeah. Yeah. When Tilly was like, "Oh, wow, have you ever noticed he doesn't sit down?" They're like, "Everyone's noticed." I was just like, and he'll sit down at the end of the episode when it's time for business. Like, that was predictable as shit.
Yeah, I agree.
Stu says, "My typical snarkiness about the interpersonal stuff and nitpicks aside, this was a pretty good episode to me because it kept on point with the actual plot for the majority of it. They had a problem, they came up with a plan, and most of the characters actually contributed pulling it off. I do wish the Breen were less Imperial Stormtrooper-like in their gullibility, and also how weirdly bad at fighting they are for a supposed warlike race that Reese, of all people, is able to hand some of them their asses. The sequence of the Discovery ramming the ship's shields and doing a U-turn was well done too. Next week I expect it to be a split between Discovery and Starfleet having some standoff or battle with Breen, while Michael and Maul have minor archaeological jaunt with a possible progenitor appearing at last. Also, maybe Saru will die, but it's okay because he recorded a holographic message to tell everyone he loves them 3,000. Before he left or something.
Nice.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting and also infuriating if they kill Saru and they have the tech and then they're like, and Tarina's like, "No. It is against everything he stands for."
Yeah.
Or some stupid shit.
That would be frustrating. And yeah, and also though, if they kill him off just to bring him back, or anyone they just kill off to bring him right back, it'll feel not great. So I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. This whole having the technology to bring people back from the dead, also like it's an assumption that like someone made, because if it can create life, it can also bring them back from the dead. That's like not been demonstrated at all. It's just an assumption one of the scientists made. I don't know, man. Wait. I'm really hoping this last episode brings it together and we'll enjoy ourselves in this last episode.
Yeah, I am too. I really want it to go well. I want it to be a good last episode. But you know what? There is a part of me that's kind of like, I think it's time. It might be time for Enterprise to finally have the burden of having the worst last episode taken off of his shoulders.
I see what you're going saying. Yeah.
It might be time to crown a new loser. if it comes down to that, I'm okay with it. But I really do want it to be great. And for what it's worth, I didn't think that last episode of Enterprise was that bad.
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, and you know, I think part of watching a show like this, especially with all the things they changed to make this show, the ways that Star Trek changed to make this show, has us sort of like even now, 7 years later or whatever, are still sort of questioning what we think of the way they make this show and everything. And you know, looking back on it, we'll probably have warmer regards for this show than we do now. But I generally like these characters and like really want the show to be great. But it's just these little episodic things that I'm watching and I'm like, that makes no sense. That makes no sense. What are you doing? Why are you focusing on that right now? Like, I don't know. Like I feel like most Star Trek has either allowed the storyline to help solve the personal issues of the crew, where like they have to accomplish something in the mission to like come to some catharsis about whatever their emotional issue is, and then it's like during the denouement of the episode they're having a conversation about like, yeah, I really learned something from this, you know, or like they'll have weird episodes like what was it called, the baseball episode or whatever, like
Take Me Out to the Holosuite.
Take Me Out to the Holosuite, where they'll just like give us an episode with limited stakes so that they can focus on those issues, you know? And then this show just insists on every episode sort of inserting these moments where they're over-focusing on the emotional impact of what's happening instead of like worrying about the mission that is currently happening. And it's, once you see it and once it's annoying, it just stays annoying. And it just like, yeah, it's frustrating. Well, anything else you got on this episode, man?
Nope. No, I'm good. I'm
awesome.
I can call it.
Well,
I can call it and happily move on.
Yeah.
From this episode.
Well, we're in high hopes for next week. I'm digging. I'm excited for it. So we'll be back then to talk about the finale of Discovery. Jolan True.
Live long and prosper.
Thank you for listening to the Star Trek Universe Podcast, a Stranded Panda production. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Roberson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv for his web videos. If you'd like to hear more from Matthew Carroll, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast or listen to his music. Just search for Matthew Carroll anywhere you get music.